What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the episode of the Primetime Sports Podcast, hosted by Joey Maylari. So today it's going to be a very quick episode. I'm going to give my thoughts on Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers, and then I'm going to talk about some news in the MLB very quickly. We'll start off with Rodgers. Hall of Fame quarterback just signed a one-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's worth $13.65 million and has a maximum value of $19.5 million. There are some incentives involved there. His time in New York obviously was disappointing. I had very high expectations of him and the Jets as a whole. Obviously, things fell short of what they were expecting and what I was expecting, but it is what it is at the end of the day. If you look at his season from last year, 28 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, just about 3,900 passing yards, and a 63% completion percentage. He played well in 3 or 4 of their last 5 games and showed that he could still compete and still be a winning quarterback. Obviously, if you look at their record overall, they were 5-12, so I know people are going to point fingers at him, but he wasn't really the issue for the Jets. The offensive line was an issue. Their defense just played soft at times. They weren't tackling well. They just weren't a very well-coached team either, so I wouldn't blame Rodgers for the struggles of the Jets. Obviously, I am disappointed with the way things ended up in New York because I thought his first year in New York, they would be an AFC championship team and maybe even have a chance at winning the Super Bowl. And then even last year, I thought they'd be, at the very least, a playoff team. And clearly, they fell short of both of those expectations in each of those years. If you look at where he is now, though, it's a very good landing place for him. I think this is a great spot for him. I wanted him to be in New York with the Giants. Obviously, the Giants went in a different direction, getting Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and then Jackson Dart in the draft. Rodgers was left with a few options. He wanted to go to Minnesota, and they ended up saying they're just going to keep J.J. McCarthy as the starter heading into next year. And obviously, J.J. did miss all of this past season, but they did draft him very high about a year ago, so it makes sense that they want to roll with him as the starter. And then the other landing spot was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers obviously waited things out. They did draft a quarterback in the draft in Will Howard, and they waited this entire situation out with Rodgers, thinking maybe Mason Rudolph would be their starting quarterback if Rodgers ends up backing out. There must have been some type of verbal commitment, I would guess, over the last 2 months that Rodgers would sign with the Jets at some point, because I was pretty shocked they didn't take any quarterback within day 1 or 2 in the NFL draft. And at that point, you're not just going to take a guy just to take them. So I guess it makes sense that they waited things out completely and just took Will Howard in day 3. But if you look at this Rodgers situation, obviously there was some interest both ways. Rodgers ends up now being with one of the best coaches of all time in Mike Tomlin. They're 2 future Hall of Famers, Rodgers and Tomlin both. It's going to be an interesting duo having those 2 together. Rodgers is entertaining, so I'll definitely be tuning into their games and rooting for him to do big things. But obviously, you never know at the end of the day. I've had high expectations for the Jets each of the last 2 years, and things didn't work out. He's going to a Steelers team that every year finds a way to be competitive, even when people doubt them. And they've made the playoffs just about every year, it seems, over the past 15 years. They last missed the playoffs in 2022, and then also 2018 and 2019 as well. Their last playoff victory, though, was only 2016, so if Rodgers could go on a run with Mike Tomlin, that could obviously change things. We'll see how things work out. But as I said, I will be rooting for the Steelers. I think Aaron Rodgers still can be a winning quarterback in this league. I'll be rooting for him. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. I think the most talented quarterback of all time when you're looking at just pure talent. And hopefully things do work out in Pittsburgh for him. Now moving on to the MLB very quick. The Red Sox just won their 3-game series in the Bronx, taking 2 of 3 from the Yankees. Trevor Story has started to heat up over the last 2 games. He's a major positive takeaway for the Red Sox in each of those 2 victories. In his last 2 games, he's raised his season OPS from 582 to 620 with 5 hits and 9 at-bats, a home run, 6 runs batted in, a double, no strikeouts, and a walk. So he's gotten on base 6 times in his last 10 plate appearances. I look at on-base percentage a lot recently. That's what I'm really weighing when I'm looking at players and seeing how effective they are. And his on-base percentage the last 2 games has been great. That's exactly what you want to see. He has been striking out a lot this season. It's encouraging to see him have a 2-game stretch where he didn't strike out and he just seemed more comfortable at the plate. Strikeouts have been a major issue for him. He swung and missed at 87 pitches on the season that were out of the zone. That's the 15th most in the MLB. Also has the 6th highest strikeout percentage in Major League Baseball with a 30.4% K percentage, which is not good at all. He's striking out at a really bad clip this season, but it's encouraging to see him get some momentum over the last couple games, and hopefully that can carry into this series with Tampa Bay. Very important series with the Rays. The Rays have heated up. They've had the best record in baseball since May 20th. They've really started to figure things out and put a lot of wins together. So this is a very important series for the Red Sox to try to keep their momentum running. In last night's win in Sunday Night Baseball, the Red Sox were down twice in that game, but they found a way to come back each time. They had a great 5th inning and a great 6th inning, including a 2-run home run from Christian Campbell in the 5th inning, and then a 3-run home run in the 6th inning from former Yankee Carlos Narvaez. And he hit that off of Carlos Rodon, who has been dominant for the Yankees this season. Rodon in his last 4 starts heading into last night, he was 4-0 in those 4 starts with 31 strikeouts to 7 walks and 25 innings pitched, allowing just 2 earned runs with a .72 ERA and a 1.43 FIP. But last night, the Red Sox did hit him around. He gave up 5 runs in 5 innings with 5 strikeouts to 3 walks. Similar to Garrett Crochet on Saturday night, got hit around by the Yankees, gave up 5 runs. Same thing with Rodon here last night. The Red Sox found a way to hit Rodon, and the Yankees found a way to hit Garrett Crochet. Obviously, the Red Sox, no matter what happens, will take 2 wins, whether or not they give up 10 runs or give up no runs. They'll take a win at the end of the day, even if Crochet got hit hard. It's good to see him get some run support finally, which has been missing all season, it seems. The last 4 batters in the Red Sox lineup last night did a lot of damage. Abraham Toro, Trevor Story, Cedar Rafaela, and Christian Campbell, they went a combined 8 of 16 in that game last night with 5 runs batted in, 3 walks, 6 runs scored, 2 doubles, and 3 home runs. The player of the game in my eyes was Abraham Toro. He was 3 for 5, 2 runs scored, 2 doubles, a home run, and 2 runs batted in. Made a great defensive play as well, diving for a ball that was on a line drive, and he ended up catching it at third base. He's been really good defensively for the Red Sox, making a lot of plays and putting his body on the line. It seems like every time there's a line drive down the line at first base or third base, he seems to always put his body on the line to try to make a play. And he's done that pretty consistently this season, even though it was very low expectations around him when he was called up. When Tristan Casas went down, he's honestly become a fan favorite over the past month. He's a guy that shows up consistently, gets on base, swings a good bat, and can make plays defensively at first base or third base. Hunter Dobbins did get the start for the Red Sox last night on the mound. He allowed 3 earned runs and 4 hits in 5 innings pitched with no strikeouts and no walks, but he did his job at the end of the day, put the Red Sox in a position to win. Really only missed twice in that game, where he gave up a home run to DJ LeMahieu and also a home run to Aaron Judge. Besides that, he was locked in for the most part and pitched pretty well in that game. He got some spotlight before the game and even during the game for a comment that he had about the Yankees, where he said that if the Yankees were the last team to offer him a contract, he would retire before trying to sign with them, which I do get where Jazz Chisholm is coming from. During the broadcast, they had him mic'd up and they asked him about it, and he said it's pretty crazy for a rookie to say that when you're not really an established player in the league. If the Yankees are the only team that wants to give you a contract, and that's the only way you stick around in the major leagues, a lot of the time players are going to take that. They're not just going to say, oh, I grew up not liking the Yankees, so I'm not going to sign with them. And I get where he's coming from. I'd probably agree with them. I think it's a little bit tough for a rookie pitcher that really isn't well established in the major leagues yet to say. But at the end of the day, Dobbins did back it up, pitched well enough in that game for the Red Sox to get the win, and didn't let that be a distraction for him. Obviously, he's a guy that isn't afraid to say that to the media, and even though he probably knew it would blow up in the media and be a potential distraction, didn't really let that affect him, and he pitched a good game last night. As I said, besides 2 pitches, and one of them being to Aaron Judge, who has been ridiculous this season for the Yankees. He's just had video game numbers consistently over the last 3 or 4 years. This year, he's hitting .396 for a batting average with a .493 on base percentage, a .771 slugging percentage, a .1264 OPS, a .250 OPS plus, 62 runs scored, and 23 home runs. He's leading Major League Baseball in hits, runs, batting average, slugging percentage, on base percentage, and OPS. Just a brilliant season for him. And I looked at my Red Sox all-time starting lineup, and I thought that was difficult putting that together, but the Yankees starting lineup would be just as difficult or even more difficult trying to figure out who would be where in that lineup. Judge has really played himself into being an all-time great on the Yankees. Today, if you're making an all-time Yankees lineup, which hopefully all the Yankees fans come on here at some point in the podcast and have them join me to give me their all-time starting Yankees lineup. With how good Judge has been, especially how consistent he's been as well when he's been healthy, it would be difficult to not expect him to be on there. So hopefully one day I'll have a Yankees fan join me on the podcast to give me their thoughts on that. So now moving on to another headline in Major League Baseball, and we'll stay in New York here, and this is with the New York Mets superstar in Juan Soto, who is starting to heat up as of late. Since May 1st, he's only hitting .246, but he has an .882 OPS over that stretch with 8 home runs and 19 runs batted in. Overall this year, he's hitting just .244 for batting average, has 11 home runs and 31 runs batted in. But if you look at his advanced metrics, they show that he's been a little bit unlucky this season. His expected batting average is .304 on the year, but he's only hitting .244, so that minus .060 difference between batting average and his expected batting average is the 3rd largest in the MLB. The same thing with slugging. He has a season slugging percentage of .436, but his expected slugging percentage is .590, and that minus .154 difference in slugging And expected slugging is the largest in Major League Baseball. And then you look at his on-base percentage, he only has a .384 on-base percentage on the year, but his expected on-base percentage is .438, which is the second highest in Major League Baseball, and that's because he walks at a greater rate than anybody in the game of baseball. He's just a very patient and disciplined hitter at the plate typically, and we'll see a lot of pitches every single at-bat. For a while, I worried that he didn't want to be in Queens. I worried that he wanted to be in the Bronx, especially after looking at how he looked in that Subway Series versus the Yankees and then how he looked in the series against the Red Sox. He seemed to just be down and didn't seem to be satisfied with where he was at. Maybe it was because he was struggling at the plate. Maybe it's because of all the fans that, were talking about him and creating headlines about how he was struggling. A lot of fans did give him a lot of criticism. So I'm sure he heard all of that. The New York media, it's not easy to be struggling there, especially when you consider he got the biggest contract in North American sports history, especially with the team that's, spending so much money and obviously being in New York. He had a lot of pressure on him to do big things and produce right away, especially when you consider he chose the Mets over the Yankees. So obviously you're going to create some enemies from Yankees fans that are now rooting against you. So I'm sure all of that played a role in his struggles early on in the season, and I was worried that he didn't want to be in Queens. But now as of late, seems like he found his footing, seems like he's more comfortable and happy with where he's at. Over his last 10 games, he's hitting .364 for a batting average with a .553 on base percentage, a .697 slugging, and a .1250 OPS with 3 home runs, 6 runs batted in, and 4 strikeouts to 13 walks. Elite plate discipline, which I already mentioned. And whether or not the Mets regret that signing one day, considering they gave him $765 million, there's a lot that still has to be played out there. Who knows how they'll feel about it 5 to 10 years from now. But if they win a championship with him, all of the money is worth it at the end of the day. But there was no doubt in my mind, you look at his contract versus, let's say, Shohei Ohtani or even Aaron Judge. It's pretty crazy. He got $765 million, but the prices in every sport just keep going up, considering how much money every sport's making and then how every single year players are more eligible, for more larger contracts. You look at the NBA every year, the max contract number and the super max contract number go up each and every year, just like in the NFL. The salary cap keeps going up every year, and quarterbacks are going to continue to make a big chunk of that salary cap. So every single year when there's a free agent quarterback that's good, they're going to get paid money because they're a very important position. Same thing goes in other sports as well. You see the same thing in baseball. More free agents there are that are better. They keep raising the price to the ones that are coming after them. So I'm not really shocked he got that payday. That was $765 million. But in my eyes, I wouldn't have given him that much money just because I feel like if things don't work out, which I know you have to take your chances, you always have to take your chances, and I always respect teams that go all in, whether that means trading draft picks or obviously giving some big paydays to potential free agents. I always respect that from teams and always want to give my respect because at the end of the day, things might not work out, but you're taking a gamble and you're taking a chance at mortgaging your future and obviously how much money you're spending in the current window and the future windows. Teams obviously have to be able to do that to compete. You have to go all in and put all the chips in sometimes. So I respect teams that do that. I just feel like with Juan Soto, I don't think he should make more money than Shohei Ohtani or even Aaron Judge. But as I already mentioned, for a young player that was 26 years old when he signed that contract, and also considering he's a very good talent as well, it made sense that the Mets wanted to outbid everybody else, and that obviously costed them having to give more money than any other potential suitor on the open market, including the Yankees and the Red Sox. With all that being said, Soto's looked really good as of late. As I said, the last 10 games, he's found his footing. He's been very unlucky this season overall when you look at the expected batting average and also the expected slugging percentage and the expected on-base percentage. He's been really unlucky overall this season, just hitting into, plays where the defense is making a great play or, he's hitting the ball and it might go out in 10 ballparks, but the one he's playing in, it ends up being a fly out. It's just been a little bit unlucky as of late. But the last 10 games, there's definitely been progress for him, and hopefully things continue to go in that direction for the Mets and Juan Soto. So now for the last thing I'm going to talk about, that's Corbin Burnes, who is undergoing Tommy John surgery, which will end his 2025 season, his first season in Arizona, finishing the year with a 3-2 record, 3 wins, 2 losses, a 2.66 ERA, and 63 strikeouts and 64 in the third innings pitched. In his last 7 starts, he went 3-1 with 46 strikeouts in 43 innings, giving up just 8 earned runs over those 7 starts with a 1.67 ERA and a 3.09 FIP. He was just getting into his groove, which that's the toughest thing about seeing this happen. He was just finding his footing and looking like the Corbin Burnes that is a potential Cy Young winner every single year. He did struggle a little bit at first in Arizona in his first 2 or 3 starts and then really found his footing as of late. The last 7 starts, as I said, a 1.67 ERA, was absolutely electric over that stretch. And then had some really bad luck last week. came out of the game with some elbow tightness or some elbow discomfort, and then obviously gets a second opinion, and now he's going to need Tommy John surgery, which will effectively end his 2025 season and probably some of the 2026 season as well. Just really disappointing to see. This is for a Diamondbacks team that has gone all in on free agency pitchers over the last 3 years. One of them being Eduardo Rodriguez, who they signed to a 4-year, $80 million deal in December of 2023. He has a 5.87 ERA and 20 starts over the last 2 years between 2024 and 2025 in Arizona, with a 4.43 FIP. He has been underwhelming for the Diamondbacks. And then Jordan Montgomery had a really good 2023 postseason run with the Texas Rangers. Was a big piece for them with them winning their World Series ring. Gets a really big payday, which overall, it's not really a big-time contract. It's not like he got like an 8-year deal, but he got 2 years at $47.5 million, which, if you look at the production he's had, $24 million is a heavy overpay for him. He had a 5.87 ERA in 2024 with a 4.48 FIP in year one in Arizona. And then this is year two right now, and he's going to miss all of this season after undergoing Tommy John surgery in March. So this was a complete bust of a contract for the Diamondbacks. And then you look at Corbin Burnes, who signed a 6-year, $210 million deal this past offseason, and he's going to finish year one with a good record, 3-2 record, which you'll take, a 2.66 ERA and a 3.88 FIP overall. Really tough break for Burnes. Really tough break for the Diamondbacks overall. They've really tried to figure out their pitching and try to surround Merrill Kelly and Zach Gallen with some good third and fourth and fifth options in the rotation over the past year or two. But they've really swung and missed on guys. Rodriguez, Montgomery, and Burnes, all of them being misses, it seems. Rodriguez did miss some time in 2024 with an injury, if I remember correctly, and that's why he only had 10 starts in 2024. And that's why he only has 20 starts overall between last year and this year in Arizona. And then Montgomery was a complete miss as well. Going to only have played 1 year in that 2-year contract and gotten paid $47.5 million for a 5.87 ERA. Never really lived up to those World Series expectations and those World Series numbers that he had when he was in Texas and helped them win their first World Series ring. Just disappointing overall. And then you look at Corbin Burnes, who was pretty good for the Diamondbacks this year, but it obviously ended in heartbreak with him now being done for the rest of the season. So brutal change of events there for the Diamondbacks. And like I already noted, I respect teams that go all in when it comes to paying a big-time free agent, or that means, trading prospects or giving up, their future and mortgaging draft picks, in other sports, let's say like the NBA, to try to help themselves win right now. I always respect teams that do that. Look at Arizona, 3 pitches in a row in free agency, 2 times in the same offseason, just about a year and a half ago, getting Eduardo Rodriguez and also getting Jordan Montgomery. Neither one of those worked out. And then this offseason as well, getting Corbin Burnes. Just a really tough break for them. They still have 2 more years left after this year is over with Eduardo Rodriguez, and then 5 years left on Corbin Burnes' deal after this year ends. And it seems like pitching injuries just continue to happen. Now you got Montgomery getting Tommy John surgery. You got Corbin Burnes getting Tommy John surgery. I think it's just because of how much of an emphasis there is in the game of baseball today on spin rate and velocity and horizontal break versus vertical break. There's such an emphasis on all of those, and it's really putting a lot of wear and tear on a lot of these pitchers' arms, and that's why you see more and more arm injuries, because there's a lot more breaking balls, and it becomes a lot more strenuous on the elbow, and you're throwing 102-mile-an-hour fastballs, and then also a ton of curveballs, and you're also throwing 70, 80 pitches an outing, even though you're not pitching 7 innings like most starting pitchers used to go, but you're still throwing 70 to 80 pitches each outing every 5th day as a starting pitcher, and it still takes a lot of wear and tear on the elbow. I was lucky when I used to pitch. I used to throw a lot of knuckleballs, and that would really take a lot of pressure off of my right elbow and also my right shoulder, because they're easier to throw. You're not really snapping your wrist like you are a curveball, and you're also not really throwing it, like a fastball. You're not throwing it that hard, and so it would just be less strenuous on my elbow, and I wouldn't really have as much pain than I would if I threw as many curveballs as what most people do nowadays. And I also wasn't throwing, 100 miles an hour like most MLB pitchers are now. So obviously that does help as well, prevent hurting the arm. But I think knuckleballs and some off-speed pitches like changeups can definitely help pitches take some of the pressure off of their elbow and prevent some injuries. So we'll see if that ends up being a tool that teams use in the future, trying to use more off-speed pitches that are, less strenuous on the arm and going to be lighter for pitchers to throw, like a knuckleball, which obviously there's not going to be as many knuckleballers in the major leagues, as there are curveball pitches. That'll never happen. But maybe you'll see some more knuckleballers in the next 10 years or so. Let's say if, youth baseball, high school baseball, and college baseball pitchers start picking that up as just an extra pitch to try to take maybe some of the workload off their elbow. It'll have to start at the lower levels, and then maybe you'll see people carried up from high school to college to single A to double A to triple A to the major leagues. We'll see how things work out, but there definitely has to be something that can help these pitchers prevent more arm injuries. You just see more and more people getting Tommy John surgery, and I know people want to blame the pitch clock. I don't think it's necessarily the pitch clock, and I'm sure there's a lot of factors. I mean, every pitcher and every player is different, and every situation's different, and there obviously is just some unfortunate luck sometimes, but I do think the emphasis on spin rate and velocity and the percentage of pitches nowadays that are fastballs or breaking balls that, put a lot of wear and tear on the elbow just seem to be very, very high. So hopefully we'll see more pitchers find ways to avoid injuries in the future. Injuries are a part of the game, and I get that. But if there's ways to prevent injuries for pitchers, whether that, is some sort of exercise they could do or maybe something they could do in-game to take a little bit of stress off the elbow, I think that could definitely help them out and prevent some more injuries in the future. And I get why there's an emphasis on spin rate and obviously horizontal break versus vertical break. It's all about obviously getting the batter on their toes and getting them swinging at pitches they shouldn't swing at, and obviously trying to get them, down in the count, which obviously to a pitcher's advantage when you're getting batters to lunge at, pitches that are breaking in the dirt early or maybe that are outside the zone. Getting them to swing at that can obviously help. That's what a pitcher's goal is, to obviously get the batter out. And anything that can give them an advantage, they're going to do that. So whether that's, high spin rate, high velocity, great vertical break, horizontal break, whatever it may be, I get why they do that because it gives you an advantage. And that's obviously you want to do is try to obviously strike out the guy that you're going against or at least get them out at the end of the day, whether that's a ground ball or a fly out. But I do think to some degree, you want to prevent injuries too at the same time, which I understand the advanced metrics on all of those things like spin rate. And obviously, why pitchers are throwing, as many breaking balls, they do fastballs or vice versa, whatever it may be. I know every situation's different, but I do think there has to be some sort of way where you can try to prevent some of these injuries, whether that's giving them an extra day off or maybe have their arm evaluated after every other start. I don't really even know what they do right now in the major leagues with some of these pitchers when they have elbow discomfort. I'm not seeing, what their plans are with each player and how often they're throwing and from how far. You don't see a lot of those workout plans, when players are rehabbing and coming back from injury. But from the outside and from a fan's perspective, you can just tell the emphasis on spin rate has definitely hurt a lot of pitchers and their chances of staying healthy, which pitching has always been a proposition where you're going to have elbow injuries and shoulder injuries and back injuries because of how much, wear and tear there is on each of those, body parts when you're throwing, especially when you're throwing 97, 98, 99 for 80 pitches a night as a starting pitcher every fifth day. You're obviously going to have some wear and tear on the elbow and have some injuries like back injuries and shoulder injuries, especially with the labrum and, the rotator cuff. Those injuries are just natural to happen when you're throwing that hard and especially when you're throwing that consistently. But I do hope Major League Baseball and baseball all around the world, whether it's college baseball, high school baseball, any other level, finds ways to try to approach things better and intervene to try to prevent players from getting injured, more than they do. Anyways, that'll wrap up this episode. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen to this. As always, I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.